This is our every year for many years has been our biggest issue yet. We started in 2013 and got a few hundred submissions and thought that was pretty good. And last year we got more than 1,500. So we're always able to take like 2-3% max of those, and we get lots of really, really excellent work, and it's a lot of pretty good work, but it comes down to what do we love. So what's in this issue is the stuff that we loved as we were reading. Before I ramble too far, I'll do the thank yous. I should thank President Fell, who gave us kind of like a Kickstarter jump back in 2003 to see if we could make a go of this thing. Thanks to Darren Fields, who helped us out a lot as VPAA and is still a friend of the magazine. So thanks, Darren. And also Chris Deneker, and who's been a great friend to the mag as chair of English and now as VPAA. Thanks. Ron, thanks for all your for setting up some of the background to the magazine as we built it the first time back in 2013. Thanks for all your support as dean of CAS and for your support of the Dina Tully multimedia contest, which we are reviewing stuff for right now. If you want to watch some cool videos and things, that's our multimedia contest. It's going on, right? Thanks to Sarah Federica too, who's been great support to the magazine as recent chair of English, and Brenda Sheline, our admin assistant, who really makes everything happen. Come on, right? Thanks to Heather and Matthew and everybody here at the Marathon Center. Thanks for having us here these last few years. Thanks to Lara and Timothy for judging. Cool, thanks. Our student staff, Noah Fishbach this year Noah read a lot of poems, you guys. Noah's gonna poetry editor for us this coming year too. So we had some good times talking about poems, like on the flight back from LA. Yeah. Long flight. And is Nikki still here? Did she have to duck out? Well, if she had to duck out, hey, thanks for reading, Nikki, and tell Mike thanks too.
Yeah, I'm subtly sneaking out.
I blew your cover. Don't look. She's being subtle. And my mother, Kathy Essinger, who is an excellent poet and stepped in to help us read a lot of submissions there when things had to happen. And Wes Sudermeister, who read a lot of poetry for us. Jennifer Kin read some poems. Chase Troxel, who has been, like I said, all over the masthead for past years when he was a student, and then we pulled him back in and made him read stuff. So
I want to see Tim read, reading this for this.
You don't escape. You don't get away that easy, right? But seriously, that's a thing that I love about this magazine, a thing that I'm really proud of. There are a lot of lit mags in the world. There are a lot that have like a national, international reach, like Slippery Elm does. There are a lot of magazines that let students do everything. I've never told students, no, you can't publish that. I seriously let them make all the publication decisions. Even when you and Michael put that one up and said, should we publish this? I wasn't going to say no.
I think about that poem once a year.
We should have published that then.
Yeah, probably.
Man. Ask me to tell you about that poem. But there are a lot of magazines that let students do everything. But all the other ones that I know are like undergrad-only magazines, or there are big national broad magazines that let their students do some things, But boy, if you're gonna make the big calls or edit or something, you have to be like a grad student or in their MFA program. And we let everybody with an interest work on the magazine, grad, undergrad, English major, other stuff, and it's a pretty cool experience. We've had students go on to cool internships, publishing industry stuff, and we build it here, right? And I want to thank everybody who sent us submissions for our biggest pool of submissions ever. 1,500 plus, man. Wow, yeah. That's a good thing. That's a lot. Let's see. I was talking about this earlier. The first few years when we threw a release party, a lot of our authors in the issue were able to show up and come read their work because a lot of people who had heard of us and sent us something were kind of from the Midwest. And they can make the trip, Now, we're coast to coast, and boy, I looked at the list of where I was sending copies, and we're just scattered all over the place, and a lot of people are sending videos. We'll do a fun video clip thing and blend it with the live reading here and put that out later on this year. Renée Schell, our poetry winner, in from California, right?
Yes.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for coming. I think it says something that for a few years we were kind of local, and now we've expanded, man. First step to world domination. Maybe it's even like the third step. I don't know. It's moving forward, right? Yeah. Thanks for coming out, everybody. Welcome. Make sure you get a copy of the issue before you go, and yeah, let's talk about all that stuff. Thanks, everybody.
Hello. Like Dave said, my name is Noah. I'm the incoming poetry editor for Slippery Elm. I'm a graduate student in the MARW program at UF. It's definitely really wonderful to work on something like this. Definitely so many submissions pouring through for this, including some great poems that unfortunately, didn't make it in because, picking, that 2-3% cream of the crop right there. But this is, one of the poems that I really enjoyed, entitled "A Kitchen Remains Unchanged." 3 years between visits. My luggage sits in your lilac-scented kitchen, gleaming white as if the runway lights followed us all the way here. Your apartment perches on the highest floor of my memory, opposite the dim-lit time capsule where my grandfather waits for me with stewed sauerkrauts and mushrooms wrinkling the air in his kitchen. I come dressed as a question, asking what remains unchanged by the ocean between us. Even now as you're covered in bruises, the midnight of your hair streaked with chemical capitalism, eyes greener than money. A smile shrugs a bruise from your shoulder as you let his name fall from your mouth, reminding me it's all just a game, that you like it this way as we again page through the same photo albums, solving riddles like how there are never any extra pages, yet somehow always room for more photos. You remind me over Ceylon tea and stuffed bread rolls. You say, remember when. There's that brief time you were married to a stork of a man with a unibrow. Your even briefer modeling career that ended when you were told to spread your legs, let Hollywood enter you. How your life was briefly a dream, yet somehow I was the one who got closest to Hollywood's glamour simply by having moved across the Atlantic. Me, who you said was beautiful in Ukraine, but probably plain in America. All that time, you remained the most beautiful woman in all of Kiev, silently asking the question of why it wasn't me who stayed, living in obscurity, managing a Chinese restaurant, tucked away in the glow of this apartment, where now you say, remember how before my parents and I boarded that plane, your 14-year-old self saved my 7-year-old self, with the only piece of wisdom you knew at the time, you said, Sveta. Always remember, never let other girls pressure you into cutting off your eyelashes because they don't ever grow back. You say now your inability to bear children must have been God's way of keeping you thin so that you could comfortably wear bifurcated pants while bossing men around a kitchen, where you look so beautiful, even now. Sweat luminous across glistening skin, reflecting in your white smile from all the heat from the oven, bright lights flashing.
Hi, I'm Kenton, and I'm very grateful to Slippery Elm for this opportunity to present my poem. This poem starts with a 6-word preamble from superstring theory. 7 of 11 dimensions are hidden. So here it goes. My Half-Known Country and Counting by Kenton K. Yee. That's me. The chairman lives within a bubble, beneath an ocean of foam, dreaming of distant suds, perhaps a castle, like an octopus of another tentacle. 2 pigeons are 2. 2 pigeons and a castle are 1. I don't know what excites the accountant more, allowance for bad debts or a plate of octopus, a new castle or the Super Bowl. The tea accounts are balancing. The prospect orders another $100. He can't sleep without his smartphone. The octopus was captured after mistaking a mesh box for a crab. The lights are changing faster. The accountant is eating his 3rd octopus. A new anxiety replaces his old anxiety. Time is past, present, and what's going to pass. The wine, crab, and octopus are gone. The chairman and the accountant, too. The pigeons vote for breadcrumbs. Thank you very much, and thank you to Slippery Elm. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Hi, all. I'm Jen Dupree, and I'm going to be reading from my short story, Watch. I'm just going to read the beginning, and the rest of it will be in the upcoming Slippery Elm. Here we go. Watch. It was Everett's idea to accept the invitation to Dan and Sue's for dinner. He said it would be good for them to get out, by which he meant it would be good for him to eat with people who were also eating. It's been 28 days since Ellen has eaten anything resembling a meal, and even then it was just chicken soup made without noodles because Ellen says noodles remind her of worms. She says she's anxious. She says she eats. She makes this latter claim when she's eating half of a banana, the other half of which she will save for later. Sue has made steak, salad, and mashed potatoes. It's the kind of food Ellen used to make, the kind of food Everett's mother made. Ellen pops a tomato into her mouth, pretends to wipe her lips, and deftly curls the tomato into the napkin. The husband, Dan says, around a mouthful of potato, covered the dog with his body, ended up saving him. Everett forks in a piece of steak so tender he almost doesn't need a knife. This is delicious. He looks at Ellen, but she's watching Dan. Then what? The bear just left? Ellen moves her steak onto Everett's plate. There's more in the kitchen. Sue's voice is as warm and fleshy as the dinner rolls she's placed in a ceramic bowl in the center of the table. Everett has already eaten 3 of them, generously buttered. Dan shakes his head. It gets worse, he says. There's gravy on his chin. Ellen pushes her plate away, knocking against the bowl of rolls, sending one tumbling toward Everett like a dare. I think I'm coming down with something, Ellen says. Sue stacks plate upon plate, all of them empty except for Ellen's. She says, "Do you want some Tylenol? Pepto?" "Bear got the wife," Dan says. "Stop," Sue says. She carries the plates into the kitchen. Ellen has moved away from the table and now stands on the far side of the dining room, limply fingering the lacy edge of a large yellow doily, which has been placed beneath a row of yellow vases of varying heights and widths. It's a jaundiced room, although Everett hasn't noticed before. "Bear killed her?" Ellen asks. Everett read somewhere that orange stimulates appetite, and so he has, over the past year, brought home navel oranges, a tablecloth the color of apricots, and bunches of tiger lilies when he can find them at the grocery store. Tonight he's wearing his orange and blue striped polo. "Why didn't he eat the husband?" Ellen asks. Dan shrugs. Maybe he was full. Sue returns with a Scrabble board and bowls of nuts. "We'll play teams," she says. Dan closes his eyes as if he can't stand what he's about to say. The poor husband had to listen to the whole thing. They are all quiet, each of them imagining the crunch of flesh and bones, or thinking of something else entirely. Dan opens his eyes. "Men against women?" "Couples against couples," Everett says. He smiles at Ellen, shakes the bag of Scrabble tiles, chooses a Y, puts it back. Dan picks his 7 tiles. Bear mauled her to death. Swear to God. "Why wouldn't the man save his wife?" Ellen asks. Ellen was never fat, but now she's like air stuck together with flesh patches. Her black cap of hair has become frayed and dusty, her body fuzzed. Why would he choose the dog?
They followed you around and around the garden, and eventually one buried itself in the tangled woods of your hair. Nobody had a good plan, except one cousin who ran into the kitchen, returning with scissors, slicing away your curls. The bee emerged, a crumb of light that flicked into the zinnias. You tried to explain why this was sad, but nobody, not even your mother, understood. And the rest of your life, you'll try to recapture the power of holding danger so close you can hear it, fizzing with internal electricity, a DC current of possibility.
Hello, my name is Mary Buchinger. I'm going to read 2 poems. First one is called Rain Gauge, a measure of what occurred. 1. Glass throat on a metal spike. Open mouth catches what comes. Does not grasp for what lies beyond. Keeps what it has for the record. 2. My mother has 3 gauges on her deck. She lived on a farm all her life. Has learned the local nature of rain. 3. Once a crow stole my gauge, snapped up the glitter in its beak, then released it to the stone patio below, where it lay in pieces, unnestable. 4. It will not measure snow, I tell my husband, who loves the snow. Yet he tests it every winter. The rain turns ice Shards hold nothing but sun. Second poem I'm going to read from Slippery Elm 2025 is called Cloud in Nine, and my name is Mary Buchinger. 1. Yesterday, the clouds, individuals with big heads and egos, infiltrated the skies. They boomed and bloomed and strutted, so full of themselves. And I found myself leaving my path in the fens to rise and live among them. What is this sky inside me? 2. The dog in my dream came running full blast through clouds of snow on the deserted street. Such a big dog, bounding toward me, and I was not afraid. The thing about dog, I tell my students, is that it means something different to everyone. A word is a symbol. Yes, we can agree a dog is a creature, but what is dog? Carrier of soul, teeth, fur, claws. The individual human experience defines dog. And in the dream, I was found by dog, who found in me happiness that spread warm as contrasting dye through my body. I did not know this dog, but clearly it knew me. Being it was my dream, dog is mine, is me. 3. And chronic pain is a dream, they say, I make in my mind. But how can this be true? Pain is the last thing I want. Sometimes I feel this way about life, too. This is also true. I am what words have dreamed. 4. And when it comes to will, as in will to live, who knows where it springs from? A decision has already traveled across the brain, procession of cumulus clouds churn a storm before it's registered. Do words carry consciousness? The one who speaks, believe me, ought to be aware the world is created with words. So many unbidden specks in sunlit air, and yes, a poet must choose ripest, reddest apples, fatted calf from among them. 5. The clouds, they move like heads that file along a city path or sit behind the wheel in rush hour traffic. Each body of cloud rattling with ego, just as each word with its own voice and history blooms with meaning, invites the next word to flower. Word conjures word. Cloud, cloud, here, beside me. 6. And of course, I'm surrounded by clouds in the form of humans. They have names and desires, furious force fields bouncing off one another and intermingling. Hey, Mayakovsky, you're not the only cloud in trousers. My friend Victor told me about your poem, and I think about him now. A pure cloud, no need of trousers. How in his 90s, sleepless, he listened to late-night AM radio stories about abductions by aliens and turned them into sonnets with meter and rhyme. 7. When I close my eyes, I see the science of me, cellular pieces loosely strung. I examine the interstices, chain link or spider web sparkling with dew. What holds these individuals inside me together? As if a cloud really is its own thing, separate from. How could you ever put pants on that? 8. A woman on the sidewalk tells her phone, I don't know how to describe to you how my son talks. And even though I'm a linguist, I don't either. This is the thing about talking with someone. You know what a person is, the person you feel beside you, talking to you. But the words mostly are forgettable. It's the feel of them, the force field of the person, collision of beings, clouds pummeling the sky, refracting light, making objects appear closer, endowing each surface with brilliant color. 9. I will tell you more because I trust you want to know. This is our pact. After all, we must believe it's possible to mean with one another. Why else do this? With the words, with the eyes, with the ears. Both of us full of heart.
There's much to admire here, beginning with this poem's structure of undulating, indented lines mirroring the ocean waves awaiting us at its conclusion. Yet reaching that shore requires a different kind of journey entirely. We're first led to the veterinarian's office and a recollection of quiet loss before being pulled deeper into the speaker's past toward a moment of raw panic, a near miss with another unbearable loss. Throughout this journey, the scarf remains a near ineffable presence. It waves and billows, it drapes and licks, a shroud of memory and regret, transforming into something approaching solace. So I remember reading Renée's poem and immediately sharing it with my wife, Ashley, who is a professor at UT as well. And she reads a lot of poems, and she was quite taken with this poem as well. And so I said, I think this is the winner, and she agreed. It is a lovely poem, Renée, and it was really easy to pick as the winner. So, do you want to read it for us?
Those beautiful words about my poem, and as so often happens, someone who reads your poem sees something in it that you didn't know was there. I hadn't thought about the staggered lines as reflecting the ocean waves, and I saw it in your blurb, and I was like, oh. That's what happens. Somebody else reveals your poem to you. So thank you for those beautiful words. And I want to thank Dave Essinger too for just all the work on Slippery Elm. I've had the pleasure of reading the journal over the years, really appreciate it, and all the work put into it by the students. Right. The scarf. I should have swaddled our old cat in it when she died. It did cross my mind. She loved that scarf. Whenever I'd worn it, then left it draped across the bed, she lay on it, curled up, ammonite tight. No one will know you didn't bury her in it, came the thought, like the needle the vet slid under the loose skin of her neck. A second needle. Maybe you didn't love her enough. But that wasn't it, just I'd had that soft swath of blue for years and couldn't bring myself to say goodbye to the scarf and the cat on the same day. Once, on the beach in Half Moon Bay, a rogue wave swept my son off his 4-year-old feet. I outran my friend the sprinter, adrenaline propelling me across coarse sand. Somehow, I reached my son before the next wave. I wound the scarf around his drenched body, wiping away salt water, the scarf, a blue tongue, licking his face over and over. Thank you.
So my name is Laura Lilly-Bridge, and I was the judge of the prose part of the contest. Before It Gets Cold is a lyrical rumination of the liminal space between day and night, between relationships, and between stagnation and moving on. Throughout this essay, the longing for sleep mimics the writer's longing for connection. Although an inherently queer story, it rises to the universal in its ache for resolution.
Before It Gets Cold by Victor McConnell. I used to sleep, which is a given, I guess. I once read that you lose your mind and can eventually die if you go without sleep long enough. It is strange that he is the reason that I'm awake, that these nights stretch on. Nights were the best times Bill and I had. Not just the lovemaking, but the way they let us be alone, yet together. If you're in the right place with the right person in the middle of the night, it really can feel like you're the only two people on Earth. I thought he felt that way too, and maybe he did for a while. I tried to pinpoint a time when it was over for us, some sign that our connection had faded, that he was going to leave. Such a moment is elusive, like trying to determine when spring has become summer or when autumn has turned to winter. You don't notice that the temperature has changed until it's too late. I guess this is as true for a relationship as it is for the planet. It is deep into the night now, long past sundown, and the living room window lets in the westerly wind that picks up around this time. I open it wide. My dog, Winston, doesn't rise until he hears the window open. He joins me in the living room, casts a sleepy look, then stands in front of the window and lifts his head, smelling whatever is born on the inbound breeze. I listen carefully, trying to detect the sound of other critters awake in the northern Louisiana night, imagining what Winston might smell. Raccoon paws scratching along a pine branch, an armadillo snout snuffling and digging for larvae in the yard, owl wings beating against the thin breeze. After a minute, Winston looks at me again, then trudges back into the bedroom to return to his own bed on the floor. Winston is almost 10, and he sleeps more than he did when he was a pup. Tonight the house is too quiet for me, so I leave around 3 a.m. Not much open in a small town at this hour. I drive down the main drag past the dark storefronts and empty parking lots. When I pass the occasional other car, I wonder if the driver is like me, if they can't sleep. I nod at them even if they can't see me through the headlights. It's enough to know that they may be part of the invisible community of insomniacs, of folks who rise at night through no will of their own and then wander about zombie-like, aimless and discontent. Stopped at a red light by the courthouse, I stare at the county administration building where Bill used to work. I used to surprise him for lunch in the summer, and we'd walk the square and eat sandwiches and talk quietly about the people we saw. The light flips to green, and I continue toward the interstate, where a gas station and a Denny's stay open 24 hours. I've been there enough that they know me, which is half the reason I go. Good evening, David. Linda always says good evening, even when the night is much closer to the end than the beginning. I appreciate that, as it makes me less anxious about how close it is to sunrise. Good evening, Linda. You having the usual? Sure, that'd be great. Thanks. She nods at me and walks away and returns with a coffee. At this hour, the pot usually isn't very fresh. Slow night? Is there any other kind? I smile. Well, I don't know. Surely you get the occasional drunk or group of teenagers or angry trucker. I suppose. You let me know if I can get you anything. I'll be back with your pancakes in a few. I slide out of the booth and walk over to the metal rack where they keep the newspapers. The local paper only prints 3 days a week now, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. My mom would have hated that. And it's delivered by mail, so it's always somewhere between 3 and 5 days old. I get confused about what day it is when I pick the paper up. It's the early hours of Friday, but the paper says Tuesday. At least it's not still the Saturday one. Bill said that we were both still young enough to start over somewhere. I didn't have the heart to tell him that I didn't think anyone could ever start over. It's a nice idea, and I let myself be warmed by that fantasy from time to time, that wish that we could shed our pasts like old skin and travel forward into a new world together, fresh and unscarred. On some nights, I'd go to bed early while Bill stayed up, and I'd wake up after he left for work and find a note on the counter from him. He usually wrote something about the night, about some small thing that had happened, a nighttime bird he'd tried to identify, or an unknown sound that startled him. Or he would just write that he missed me, that the dark hours weren't the same when faced alone. I didn't blame Bill for leaving. He'd been married to a woman in his early 20s and they had a child together. After he came out, they divorced, but he stayed in town and shared custody of his daughter. I met Bill when his daughter was a freshman in high school. She'd be starting her junior fall in college now. He was a committed father, going straight from his county office job to her soccer games, and he always took her to school on the days she was with him instead of her having her ride the bus. He told me that once she left for college, he wanted to leave town too, travel, see the world, maybe live in a big city. I guess I didn't take him seriously. Linda arrives with my pancakes and bacon. I reminded Harold to make the edges crisp, just like you like 'em. I nod and thank her and watch her go. Linda's probably 20 years older than me, close to 70, and she mostly talks about her grandchildren. Her 4 kids have all stayed in the area. I like seeing her shortly after a holiday and hearing about her family. My mom died in October 2 years ago, a few months before Bill and I split up. My holiday gatherings have been smaller since then. My sister and her husband and kids came up from Houston for Christmas the first year before we sold Mom's house. At least, Mom was still alive when I came out. Dad died when I was in college, and it's always nagged at me that he didn't get to know the real me. Mom used to reassure me that he did, that he knew who I was inside, that he would have accepted me. I wasn't sure. I don't really know why I stayed. Maybe if I'd been more open to leaving town, Bill wouldn't have slept with our dentist and then left with him. There is something particularly depressing about being left for a dentist. The dentist's name was Zach. He just turned 50 and was half retired and had more time and money than I did. I guess the trade-off of being with a dentist was worth it for Bill, as I know he wanted more time and money too. I was angry about it for a while. Anger fades into sadness eventually, though, like a photograph. No matter how much action it holds, how bright the colors, it does fade, especially if exposed to bright light. Sadness lasts much longer than anger. Maybe that is what is left after endings of all kinds. Maybe even after the world is gone, there will be some sort of sadness still there, just sitting in space, even if there is no one to feel it. In the beginning there was light. In the end there was sadness. Something like that.
I'm Bill Smoot, here in the Wildland Hills east of Berkeley. The setting of my story, the Coyote Wars. I'm going to read the beginning of it. The days are short and the nights are cold when Faye's heat begins. Lap is one of the 4 male coyotes following her. Intoxicated by her scent, they cavort and preen for her. To one another they make air bites and growl. At night they howl. On the 3rd day, Faye approaches Lap and licks his pointed muzzle, her pink tongue smoothing his fur like spring rain wetting the grass. He lays his ears back in pleasure. She nuzzles his neck. The other 3 males slink away. Faye and Lap trot the hills and meadows that roll east from the neighborhoods of the Berkeley Hills. Lap marks their new territory. He follows Faye's musky scent and perfect gait, her back paw striking the precise spot where her front paw stepped. They inhale the smells of grasses and shrubs, wildflowers and trees, other animals that have passed through. They bear the acrid fumes of automobiles. Note the scents of damp-skinned humans. In the eucalyptus grove, they roll on the ground to absorb the oil that repels fleas. They hunt together and sleep side by side, curled like two fur commas in the tall grass. When Faye is ready, she backs into Lap's chest, her tail raised, her vulva swollen and pink. He mounts her, grabbing her neck fur firmly in his teeth. It feels familiar, as if in a lost past he has done this before. They have several ties a day until Faye shows her teeth and growls. Mounting is over. Neighborhood residents notice an increase in coyotes. People who have never seen one now notice them frequently, crossing trails, sitting on hillsides, trotting down streets, piercing the silence with their screeching yips and howls. A woman phones the park police to report a wolf. She is told there are no wolves in the Bay Area, probably a coyote. The regional wildland abutting the residential neighborhood stretches for miles. During the rainy season, one of the roads is closed to protect an endangered variety of slowly crawling newt. People smile at the closure, basking in the ecological goodness of the plan. When the hills turn tender dry in summer and people worry about the risk of wildfires, graceful deer are seen silently searching yards for well-hydrated plants. The goodwill felt for the deer and newts is not extended to coyotes. Intruders from the wildland, coyotes exude an attitude that rankles people, haughty, brazen, blasé to human rights of ownership. Like bird droppings on deck furniture, mice in basements, and homeless people in downtown doorways, coyotes disrupt the order people need and deserve. Heavy winter rains pelt the woods and meadows. Fewer humans hike the wildlands now, and those who come wear slickers of bright yellow, a color coyotes see well. They bring dogs that bark and run without purpose. Faye and Lap watch nervously. The humans have dull senses and do not see the coyotes. When they leave, Lap remarks the territory. Though the nights remain cold, the days lengthen, and the Northern California grasses turn green. On a slope of chaparral, Lap and Faye dig out a gopher hole until it's large enough for her to lie in. This too feels familiar, like a past memory shaping a future plan. The den faces south to receive the cool winter sun. Looking down the slope, they can see anything that might approach. They hear the rush of a creek after a rain. They tramp the wet grass to make two exit paths, one up the slope and the other digitally down. Faye's body swells.
Grief is a house sparrow. Bird, you've been perched in that oak tree in the yard next door for so long, it's as if you've forgotten how to fly. By now I can describe you by heart. Modest brown feathers, white belly, black throat. I see your toes clutch the branch for dear life, head twitch nervously, beak open and shut as if you're about to speak, and then can't recall what it was you meant to say. I'd expected the obvious mourning dove, graceful and pale as a swooning Victorian. Of course, sparrows are so common here. Tough city birds, mighty for their size, able to survive the seasons on so little. Seed from the feeder dangling from the deck across the way. Winter berries, crusts. Sparrow, you keep your vigil as I keep mine. So still, I imagine I could reach out and hold you, feel your tiny heart beating, beating. One day, perhaps you'll be gone, leaving behind the space you held, and I'll keep thinking I see you Or maybe a different bird will take your place.
I'm going to read the poem by Marjorie Maddox, which is on page 129 if you're following along. She's a wonderful poet and a friend. I was glad to see her in this issue. Two birds mating on a wire. Because I don't know the names of things, I call them small birds. These two so still, so their companionship. And then a flutter, a hop, and mount. No song to confirm, without my glasses on, the will to name what I don't know. Because things look like others, I call them chickadee, wren, love, instinct. Blurred vision Mary's want tells the nature of companionship, the afterthought of them that makes up now. Small birds pretend nothing as you move close, away, loyal to wire, until the lure of sky causes you to know, name the things you and I are not. Drab creatures of habit, wingless to land and leave so freely. We stare, compare all to full-feathered companionship, and then lift off into the nature of want, trilling definitions of contentment or complaint. Small birds we call what we can't name or know, the cause of things, flight, companionship, love, are steady now and then.
So the one I want to read, I might be stealing this one from you, Dave, is Plymouth Fury. When we put together, well, at least my top 10 list, this one was really high up there. I don't know if it ended up being a runner-up or not, but it certainly was one that stood out. So this is Plymouth Fury by Richard Hague. I don't know. All right. We called him Buffalo Royden. His long blonde hair, deliberate access, 4-bore drinking, his roughed-up cowboy hat, and then his car, gun barrel blue, Aurora, push-button transmission, just punch, second first drive, and 0 to 90 in 3 short breaths. Many of the time he and I boarded his fury, and what dread and secrets from his young manhood unrolled like a burnt-edged map. Some neighbor diddling him in the woods, a naked uncle smacking his face, a go-go girl in a drunk titty bar called him Twit. Push, the button swerve, roar, flee. Nowhere was far enough, his head and arm hanging out, the window as plains hunters did, when aboard their headlong trains, their rifles loaded with free army ammunition, they drew, bead, and shot the memory bison dead, and dead, and dead. That one stood out.
Hi, this is B. Fulton Janice. I'm going to read my poem, That's the Boy Who Shot His Brother on Christmas Day, which I'm really delighted to have appear in Slippery Elm. That's the boy who shot his brother on Christmas Day. He slid beside me that first day and every day, just the two of us and all the rows of seats on the coughing yellow bus. We never talked. Our eyes never met. I looked out my window. He peered straight ahead. When the raucous lake kids clambered aboard and hovered around us later in the route, he took my hand and held it. At school, we parted ways, him to his kindergarten classroom at the far end of the hall, me to mine behind Mrs. Johnson's red door, her shepherding us out of the cloakroom. Hurry, children, it's time to learn. Sometimes I saw him on the playground, in an assembly, shivering through a fire drill outdoors, each of us alone, surrounded by a mote of silence. We met again on the bus at the end of each school day. Whichever of us boarded first saved the seat. We never talked. Our eyes never met. At his stop, he'd rise and clomp down the aisle, down the bus's high steps, the buckles of his unbuckled rubber boots slapping, his mother in the window waving hello. Once, Driving past his house on our way to Miller's Market, I pointed to the house, told my mother, "He's my friend." She raised her eyebrows, told me. 2 Christmases ago. Older brother showing off his new 22. "Here, you hold it." The Monday after I learned the truth, he slid beside me on the school bus. We never talked. Our eyes never met. I took his hand and held it. Thank you.